Welcome back, everybody. In this lesson, which is the last of our sequences and iteration lesson, we're going to learn about how to iterate through a sequence. Okay. But before that, we should first, like always we do, we should make a connection to the real world. Okay. So we iterate often in real world. Okay. Or repetition, iteration has the same meaning. Okay. You can see it everywhere, right? So when you see production lines like canning, car manufacturing, production, manufacturing, right, mail processing, so there's something you have seen like a worker or a machine do repeated task. Okay. And it also, we can see in counting, skip counting exercise, like for example, like 20 push-ups, we count from 1 to 20. Okay. So all of these repetitions, we apply a single or few tasks repeatedly. Okay. And then that set of tasks may be same set of tasks or can be slightly different as well. For example, in a mail processing factory, so when you post the stamp or you when you scan it or when you put a label, the label could be slightly different to each of the letters. Okay. So the task may be common or slightly changing. Okay. And not only that, number of repetitions may be certain. For example, push-up case for 1 to 20. The number of repetition is 20, which is a certain value. But for example, in canning industry, you can, as long as the supply coming, let's say soup supplies, you can it until you run out of the soup supply, right? So it's a condition there. Okay. So it could be either conditional or certain, the number of repetitions. Okay. And when we go to programming world, then we know that fast repetitions is the the one of the most value the computer giving to us, right? So for example, if you take million records in a, let's say in a spreadsheet, and you need to sort it out. Now imagine having to sort it out by hand. Now we use the computer, and in split second you get the sorted values, right? So that's actually uh, uh, at least a million repetitions happening really fast inside the computer. Okay. So how do we achieve iteration in programming? Okay. Of course, the language must support it, right? So it's really common in reality. So it has to be addressed in the programming world too. So language must support it. So that means it should be supported by the language grammar or syntax. And let's see how Python implement iterations. Okay. All right. In Python, one of the iterations statement is for statement. Okay. So it allows to iterate definite amount of times. Okay. So is the syntax. So we start off with the for keyword or reserved word. Okay. In all my slides, all the reserved words are in purple. Okay. We have a loop variable, and we'll see what it is shortly. And then we have the in operator, and then we have an iterable. Okay. So iterable is basically any sequence can be iterated. So an iterable is any You can say it's any sequence, and container as well. So we'll learn more about those later on in the class. Okay. So for now, anything that you can iterate, like you can go one by one inside, it's an iterable. Okay. And do something inside the for loop. And notice the end of the first line is colon, and the body of the loop, which is this part, is intended by one tab or four spaces. Okay. So loop variable is called loop variable. So this is the name for that. Okay. An iterable object. So usually sequences or containers. Okay. Do something is called the loop body. Okay. So, and the loop body must be indented by four space or one tab. Okay. And the entire loop body gonna get executed per each loop variable value. Okay. All right. So let's now try to digest the for loop flow. Okay. All right. So since the number of iterations is definite, we call for loop kind of iterations, for loop statement, it's called definite iterations. Okay. Since the number of iterations are definite. Okay. All right. So here's how the flow works. The flow enters from the main program from the top of the loop. Okay. Top. All right. So on each iteration, Python checks the next item to be processed inside that iterable object. Okay. Each iteration, Python check for the next item. Okay. So if there is a next item, then Python execute that loop body inside the for loop once, only once. Okay. All right. So at the end of each that iteration, Python go check again the iterable, okay, for the next item. Okay. And if there's no such item, basically when you are at the end of the iterable, okay, then loop body execution is basically done. Okay. And the flow now returns to the main program, so where the for loop was sitting. So it returns to that place. Okay. All right. So that's all. That's the flow of for statement. And let's now see this is in a simple example. Okay. So I'm going to demo now how the for loop flow workflow works. So we're going to basically demonstrate this using this to create a simple message to 3 people in a COVID virtual party. So that's just an example. Okay. So let's see about that. Okay. All right. So we have the program before the for loop. It's basically print the message, welcome to virtual COVID party. And that's before, and we already have the output. Okay. So it's the program before. So this is where you will see the flow chart. Okay. So next step, now the flow enters into the for loop. Okay. Now it asks the question, okay, is the item is the last in the sequence. Okay. So this condition is built into the for loop. Okay, and you don't see it in outside. Okay, but inside Python check for this. Okay. So if, well, at first, usually the answer is no. Okay, not the last. So we go further into the, now we go into the for loop body. Okay. And basically Python will assign the next item to the loop variable and execute the body one. So this is the body, right? This is the body. So we executed just once. Okay. All right. Okay. So for I is the loop variable in range 3. So we have just 0, 1, and 2 in our range. Okay. So first value is 0. It got printed. Okay. Continue. Okay. So now at the end of the for loop, we said it's going to go check again the for loop statement, right? So it check again and ask the same question. So it's no again. Okay. So it's no again. So we execute one more round. Now the loop variable value is 1. Okay. Because remember we previously assigned that value, right? Okay. And then we continue and ask the same question. Okay. And it's again no. So we print the next value. Okay. All right. So we have now printed all the elements in the range. Range 3 has just 0, 1, and 2. So we have now printed all the elements. So now the answer is we have reached the yes. So we exit the loop and we go to the program after the for loop. Okay. And that is this line. Okay. It's outside the for loop. So we print that. So that is the end of the iteration. So it's a simple demonstration of how the for loop workflow happens. Okay, so let's continue. All right, so let's practice for loop using by solving this problem using a for loop. Okay, so the problem is write a Python function to print the integers between given start and end values, both inclusive in a single line separated by a single space using for loop. For example, given the start is 6 and end is 10, your function must print 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So I'm going to start a simple understand process for this one. Okay. So let's try to do that. So input, okay, going to be 2, start and stop. And the output, basically, right, you need to print. Okay. Print basically start to stop. Okay, so let's take an example. Okay, so if we take start equals, let's say 6 and stop equals 10, right? And it's actually saying end, so I'm going to take end. Okay, so end. Okay, so then basically print, okay, 6, right? So it's saying both inclusive, right? So both inclusive means start should start with 6 and end with, in this case, 8, 10, right? So I need to print these numbers separated by space only, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that's what I have to do. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna skip the match. Okay, so let's go to plan and quickly write our plan. So we need to use a for loop, right? So first one, okay, so data start end. Remember, we are writing a function, so we're going to pass those. So the input going to be not the input function. We are going to pass these two parameters as input parameters to our function. So step 2, okay, so we need to print these lines one by one, these numbers one by one, okay, using a for loop. So I am going to start my plan with 4, okay. Well, in English also we say that, okay, do this thing for this many times. So for, we use the for conjunction or the proposition, I'm not sure, but this word in this kind of things, like to push up for 20 times, right? So something like that. So that's why started with 4, okay. 4 numbers, that is my loop variables, was in, okay, all right, range, okay. So there's a range now, right? Start to end, okay, okay. And then I also put this, and then we are now inside our for loop. So it's actually 2.1 step, okay. So we are inside our for loop. So just print numbers, okay. So this is the plan. Let's go to implementation, okay. So def, okay, print numbers, that this is the one that I'm going to take, numbers, okay. So 2 parameters, start, stop, okay. And you can write a doc string as well, okay. So print numbers from start to end. Notice, okay, notice the inclusion of 2 parameters, end, okay. All right, so go to our plan and then convert the English grammar, English code into program code, okay. So for, okay, numbers in range, okay, start, stop, okay, and now we are inside. So inside we print, okay. So we print numbers, okay. So let's first run this one. I'm pretty sure this is not what we expect, but anyway, rs, okay. All right, so into the main program, we're going to go there and run it, okay. All right, that's slide 24. So this main program. So let's take the start value, stop value, okay. So 6 and stop, well, stop, it's fine. Well, I'm going to take as end, and that's actually 10. I'm going to pass end, okay, and it's good, okay. All right, so this is not a fruitful function, okay. See that we are not returning, we just print in there. That was the example of non-fruitful function. So we just call it, okay. All right, so let's run this one and see what comes up, okay. So we printed numbers, and problem asks us to print this in a horizontal line, okay. So this is the classic example of review, okay. So review, we did the review and we got partially correct result, okay. Program ran and we got some set of numbers. Now we analyze the result and then we go back and then correct, okay. So in this case, I also notice that I'm printing 1 less than 10. I need to print 10 as well. So let's correct those, okay? So to print 10 also, to be inclusive, okay, I need to basically add 1, because ranges, remember, the stop is range, create set of numbers 1 less than, like, less than the stop value. So we need to be, so to include the stop also, we need to add 1, so that's when it'll include the stop also. And then in here we need to print the end equals, the end character equals single space. That's all. Okay, so our review is done, and then let's run it again. So we got the answer. Okay, so make sure to, whenever you solve a problem with for loop, make sure to come up with the algorithm, and it's really important, because then you simply convert this English, that your code in English, into your code in Python. But if you have it in basically as a set of lines in your plan or algorithm, then it's a matter of applying the Python grammar. Okay, it's a translation problem after that. It's not problem solving anymore, it's just translation problem. Okay, all right, so let's continue. All right, next iteration mechanism is while loop. Okay, so we went over for loop. Okay, so while loop basically can iterate until a condition become false. Okay, so here's the syntax. Okay, so we have while reserved word, and then we have a Boolean expression. It is paramount that you understand that this has to be a Boolean expression. Okay, and we know that Python, if it has to, will try to evaluate an expression as a Boolean expression. Okay, so remember that as well. So this has to be evaluated to a Boolean value. Okay, okay, so if it is on the top, if it is not a Boolean expression, Python will try to imply it as a Boolean expression. Otherwise, it will return an error. Okay. All right. So that's the condition, and we have the colon, and then inside we have the loop body. Okay. All right. So do something is called the loop body. Okay, and must be intended by 4 space or 1 tab. Okay, and that loop body gonna get executed only once per each time the Boolean expression evaluates to true. Okay, it's really important to understand that only when that Boolean expression evaluates to true, you're gonna get the loop body executed. Okay, so all right, so use while statement or while loop to iterate. If you have a problem to solve, problem like set of tasks to iterate based on a condition, not specific number of iterations. Okay, any for loop can be converted to a while loop as well. Okay, and is the opposite true? Yes, any while loop also can be converted to a for loop, but it's a little bit cumbersome, and you will need other stuff. You will need to import containers module and then do some other stuff. So it's not that common to convert a while loop into for loop, but any for loop can be converted into a while loop really easily and straightforward as well. Okay. All right. So let's try to understand the flow of a while loop. Okay. We call them indefinite iterations because the number of iteration is uncertain. Okay. So first flow enter the loop. Okay, and then each iteration, Python checks the truth value of the Boolean expression. So if it is evaluates as true, only it goes inside. Okay, and then loop body executed once. At the end of one of each iteration, Python returns to the top of the while statement again and check the Boolean expression again. Okay, and when that Boolean expression become false, evaluated to false, and then loop exit. Okay, so the loop body execution is done. The flow return to the main flow. Okay, so let's try to demo while loop the same way that we did for the for loop. Okay, I'm going to use the same example, the COVID virtual part. Okay, so we start the program. So main program prints the welcome message, common welcome message. Then the count is 0. So with the while loop, we need to create this condition, right? So usually in order to create this condition and check for it, we need the third variable. So in for loop, it's built in. In the case of while loop, there's a good chance that we need to define a new variable. In this case, the count of people. And the condition is if the count is less than 3, there's only 3 people we expect. So we go in the loop and then greet them. Okay. All right. So in this case, the loop condition is true is the condition. That's the condition. If it is true, we go inside. Okay. So true, yes. We go into the loop and we print the message. Now, as we do it, we need to increment this value. Okay. Right. So the count is now 1. Okay. Because earlier it was 0. It is 1 now. Now, if we don't do it, and you can see that count is always 0, and we're going to keep printing. Okay. So need to update this variable so that at one point this check fails. Okay. At which point the loop exit. Okay. So let's continue. So now we check the condition again. It's still true. Okay. So still true, and print we welcome that second guess. Okay, and do the check again, and now it's 2. Okay, so it's still less than 3. Okay, so we print the next message. All right, and now it is 3, and 3 less than 3 is false. Okay, 3 actually equal to 3, right? So basically now the loop exit. Okay, and go to the main program and print the lines after that. So in this case, we welcomed all message in the main program. Okay, so that's a simple, silly but straightforward demonstration of how the flow works in a while loop. Okay, so now let's convert our solution of previous problem in using while loop. Okay, so go over here, but we need to convert this plan using a while loop. Okay, so I'm going to go over here. Okay, maybe I can write it again. So this is plan 1. So plan 2. Okay, I need to simply convert this plan using while loop. Okay, so plan 2. Understanding is done, right? So we are done with that. So this is while. Okay, while the count, okay, so let's say we need to count the numbers, okay. Let's check, okay, while we can check for the, so if we check for the numbers, we can check for this number, value of this number, and compare it with the end value, okay. So if numbers, okay, less than, okay, end or stop, okay, print numbers. And before that, we need to initialize. Remember, we had to initialize that variable, right? So init numbers, okay, and then this is the third step, and then there's one more step, 3.2, which is we need to update the numbers, right? Numbers plus numbers equals numbers plus 1, okay. And this initialization, basically it needs to be equals to the start, right? That's where we start the numbering, okay. So let's convert this to code now, okay. So I'm going to copy this, all right, okay, and this is 2 now, it's 1, so, and this will be while loop, right? So while, so before that we need to initialize, right? So let's initialization, basically take numbers and equals to start, okay. Okay, and then greater than, sorry, less than, stop, okay. So that's the condition, and we print numbers, and then we need to update the numbers, right? Okay, numbers, and it could be plus equals 1, okay. So this is simply numbers equals numbers plus 1, okay. And I recommend using this, so this shows maturity, okay, and this is a mature class, so right, so no longer an intro class. So this means simply we update numbers with the next value. So it's an accumulation, we call it accumulator pattern. So it's an accumulation, one by one we add this to this value number, and there's an operator for that, and then you may use that, okay. All right, so always do that, okay. So that's it, we can try running this code as well, okay. So okay, so let's call this function now. All right, oh, we need to, yeah, we printed, yes, okay. So let's see, so it should be 1, we change the name, so right, I'm going to copy this and change. All right, so this should be 2 now, so let's test this out. All right, so we printed, okay, so 6, 7, 8, 9, but it didn't print 10, right? So basically the condition become fails even before we reach 10, okay. So there's two way to correct this, okay, and then you'll uh, get to know this with practice, okay. One thing, so let me try to keep this, and then, well, one way of doing it is we can have to add one over here. So we are basically now go until one more than stop, right? So we need to be inclusive of 10. Okay. So you can also try incrementing right here. Okay. So now this should be -1. Okay. And then let's try this. I'm not sure. Let's just try it. Okay. So this is the other way. So I'm gonna block this line. Okay. And we got the same. Okay. All right. So what I did was I did the update to the variable, the loop variable, in this case, the variable inside the condition before I do the task. Okay. So, and I manipulated the initialized value based on that. Okay. So now every time Python do this and do the task and then come check, right? So in the previous way, basically once we are done with the task, Python increment the number. Okay, so in that case, I had to change the condition. Okay, and you see that you may be able to do both strategies. Okay, all right. So that's the while loop. Okay, simple demonstration.